Once upon a time, there was a girl who grew into a woman. She held a belief and a feeling about the area around what used to be called the pond. That area where garbage was burned for the entire island. I grew up with a feeling that it was very unjust for an area so concentrated with people for them to have to inhale the fumes from the pond, from the combustion from the dump, and that their brand new babies that would come home from the hospital would be met with the smell and the stench of the dump. And I certainly did attach racial feelings and attitudes towards the fact that all the people living in that dump area were all black. And I wasn't aware of the fact, because I don't remember that ever being a conversation in my home, but I held a very, very, very strong resentment that there could be areas in the island that remained pristine while so many people had to live in and around the dump. I personally didn't live there, but it seemed to have very little to do with the way I felt about it. As a grown woman and an artist, I found myself traveling around the Happy Valley area and asking myself the question why I hadn't painted this part of Bermuda. After all, my grandfather had a carpentry shop in Happy Valley, and my great-grandfather was a farmer that farmed the glebe lands. And one day a light bulb went off. I just cannot believe it. I have been doing a lot of personal growth work, but one day a light bulb went off, and I realized that as Bermuda kept the area in and around the dump well away from the tourist, in its shame in not wanting to show that as being reflective of Bermuda, I borrowed that shame and I too shut that area off. I was angry with the residents of that area that they didn't scream and holler more and demand that things be changed. Ironically, that area is no longer a dump. It's becoming a very green area. But my attitude towards the area was as strong as it had been when it was, in fact, the area where garbage was burned. This is a story of one woman, one artist who went back to look at the land. Went back to see if I could just stand in that space, stand in that dump, in and around it, and just look and see what feelings came up. I was amazed. What an incredible experience. I think in part I felt that I had to be faithful to a belief, be true to it by not letting go, not ever forgetting what was. The land, I found, the land is beautiful. The land is the Bermuda I've wanted to paint. These neighborhoods, these small, sometimes higgledy-piggledy houses, these very well-maintained small Bermuda cottages. I think the message really for myself, what the experience taught me, was how it's possible to hold on to attitudes and emotions to a degree where you don't necessarily remember even that you're holding these what are now deep-seated emotions, and how much these emotions have the capacity to rob us of celebrating life in And in this case, it actually shut me off from being able to see and celebrate my heritage. 2 generations lived and breathed and worked in that area with tons of relatives and friends that came out of that particular neighborhood, that particular area of Bermuda. And so the experience was one of coming home to myself in so many ways. I want to share this with Bermuda because it really does make clear why it's important that every group, every major group that has contributed to the history of this country be celebrated, be visibly celebrated by everyone. There were proud people that came out of these neighborhoods, people that contributed and have had so much to do with the success of this country on many levels. And now I'm happy because I can tell the story. It's a story of transformation. It's a story of growth. And I'm not so vain as to believe that it's only my story. I think it's the story of a number of people who will be able to identify with this. Coming home and celebrating the struggle. The land will always speak for itself. I can let go of it, not necessarily forget it, but I no longer need to hold it. And in letting it go, I can bring this to you. This is a beautiful country. I pay homage to the relatives of so many people who had their history in this particular area of Bermuda. Coming home. Power of art to transform, uplift, and inspire.